My name is Phibia. I work with IRC Lodwa program as the Gender-Based Violence Program Manager. I support protection activities for Turkana, Central and Loima sub-counties. Usually we have our normal programs, protection programs on women protection and empowerment. But ever since the drought was declared an emergency here in Kenya, we started some response with regard to issues of gender-based violence. I was part of the assessment team, and we were looking at how the drought has affected populations here and what were some of the coping mechanisms that communities had come up with. And the assessment clearly indicated that there were some harmful coping mechanisms that people had come up with. For example, with regards to women and girls, some women reported to be engaging in transactional sex. Girls reported to have been married off at an early age so as to get food for their families. Children reported to be traveling for longer distances to go and beg from neighboring communities, and also children being sent away to live with their relatives and also exposing them to some protection risks. It's considered normal because this is a patriarchal community. There is a lot of negative use of power by men. This is a society where, women are considered to be lesser than men most oftenly. Women used as, mostly used as breadwinners for their families, engaging in very tough labor to fend for their families. But at the end of the day, they are not recognized as important people in the community. So if you look at the nature, even the issues of marrying girls, of young girls are seen as a source of wealth and a source of income even to the family. The same thing with women. Like when we were doing the assessment, some women were making very painful disclosures like, if I know he's HIV positive and he has food, I have to go and have sex with him so that he can give me food. I think looking at the nature of the Turkana, because I've been here for long, the drought started beating around in mid 2016, but it took quite some time before it was declared an emergency. And even moving around to communities asking them about the drought, it's one of the longest droughts, I think, in the last 20 years. And when we say issues of protection, especially child marriage, transactional sex, and even defilement have been exacerbated by the drought, on the ground it's a real situation because it's something normal for the Turkana community to marry off their children when they are young. But now, because there is scarcity of food, people have seen young girls as a source of getting food from those families that still have goats, that still have camels. And also issues of girls moving from rural towns to urban towns in order to transact for food, transact sex for food. I think they are increasing because in the last 3 weeks, we as protection partners from Lodwa, that is the Turkana Gender and Child Protection Network, we did a physical count of young girls who are getting into nightclubs in one night. And we mapped around 417 children, out of which 328 were girls aged between 12 to 17 years. So it's not usually, even when we were doing the night street work, the number is not that huge. So it goes back to saying there is a high probability that this has been exaggerated by the current drought situation. What usually happens is for fathers, they don't care so much about children in this community. It's mothers who do that. And when the situation becomes tougher, now it's everybody for himself. Because even food that is available, sometimes it's given to the husband and not the children. So the children now come up with their own coping mechanisms. Sometimes they discuss with their mothers, and the mothers advise them to go to and stay with the relatives. And some relatives use them as a source of income by just indirectly telling them, you can equally fend for the family and fend for yourself. So that's why when young girls get exposed to the the street life, they look at how young girls in the street make money out of cheap sex. That's when now they become recruited, girls from outside town. But those ones who are in town, I think for them it's they learn in the process of living in the streets. And we have we have a program that was trying to stop commercial sexual exploitation for children. It's supported by charities homes and implemented by the diocese. And now the challenge is they are reaching out to a very smaller number. They get so many, but they reach out to a very smaller number of young girls engaging in commercial sex work in Turkana Central. What happens is when they get into a nightclub, they are given small alcohol in the form of 1 or 2 beers, and you know it's something new to them. After they take alcohol, now the men will start demanding for sex. And the girl will ask for money. It's not a lot of money. It can even be 50 shillings. And for the local brew, the girls will tell you, I was very hungry and he gave me a cup of the local brew in exchange for sex. Or he gave me 20 shillings. The largest amount is 200 shillings for a man who has really misused her or almost the whole night. For those who have reported to the center, the wellness center in Lodwar, we have a wellness center where we support survivors of sexual gender-based violence. For those who have come, I think it takes quite some time, even trying to talk to them. The magnitude of the trauma, for me, I feel it's huge because these are young girls speaking to you about what happened. Even their strength to speak about that, they try. But the trauma is so huge that even sometimes when you try to talk to them, to withdraw them from that kind of lifestyle, they withdraw for a short period of time, and then they find themselves again in the same business. Yeah. But there are few who have accepted to go to, we support them with the basic dignity kits, and they go back to schools. Very few. It's because looking at the options, other livelihoods, sources, at the moment, very scarce. Even household labor for them it's not something sustainable, because sometimes they say you go engage in household labor as a casual laborer at someone's house. After that, the relatives of the family, or the male relatives, including even boys and the husband, might start demanding for sex in exchange for food, because you are only paid with food. You are given a small portion to take back to your family at the end of the day. For me, I think it's because of a lack of livelihood options. That's why they opt to still go back and continue with the same. Some really engage in that business very painfully, I think it's out of hunger and a lack of another option to engage in. But we had a few cases of girls who decided to go back to school, and we support them with just the basic dignity kits that we have for survivors. And we also sometimes refer them to partners who support with uniforms, those things that we don't provide, but they are very, very few. There are those girls who, when we were doing our normal programming, we put them in a girls-only program. Now we took them through, life skill sessions, basic entrepreneurship skills, GBV prevention, reproductive health, and even some of them, like 36 girls, were able to get out of commercial sex work and now do bidding. We provided them with beads, they do bidding, and also they do hair making. That was a success, but since we stopped, due to funding, we've never supported the girls this year, and some of them, to some extent, they have also lost confidence in us. They think we will not, we keep on telling them we will just come back with the normal girls program that we've been supporting. But the program was really, really helpful for these girls because we were working closely with our HIV program that supports young adolescent girls who also engage in female sex work. And that's why we were able to support 36 girls successfully in the last implementation period. Last week we had only one case of a child who was defiled and succumbed to fistula. The child was defiled. Defilement is sex, unconsented sex with a child who is less than 18 years. And this was an 11-year-old girl who was sexually assaulted. Unfortunately, she could not hold urine because of what happened to her. And it was something that they could not manage from the facility. So they had to refer to Lodwar County and Referral Hospital. There is one specific case of a 6-year-old girl. It came to my attention in February. That time I was the only staff supporting the wellness center. How I came to know about this girl, she did not directly come to the wellness center, but a clinician called me, who is usually at the emergency clinic in the hospital, called me and asked me, are you at the center? Because at that time I was alone, so I'm the one who is at the center in the morning. In the afternoons I go to do home visits for the survivors that are at home. I'm also the same person who is going to do follow-ups for the referrals that I did with the other partners like the police and also the diocese. So I was not at the wellness center that time. And she told me there is a young girl who was brought this morning, and she's now admitted at the pediatrics clinic. So I came in the following morning, to the pediatrics ward. I found this girl. Initially she was brought as she was beaten. She had been beaten brutally. And I didn't know she was sexually assaulted. So the woman who brought that girl was a driver for the hospital. She came and told me this girl has been sexually assaulted. Then I asked her, how did you know? She said she's just passing urine. I talked to, at that time there were Spanish doctors in the hospital. There were a team of experts, around 18 doctors, specialists at the hospital. And there was another lady she's Spanish. And they have a community in Erot, part of the north. And we met in church at some point, and she was the person who was leading the doctors. So I spoke with her. She's called Alexia, and I told her I have a case here which is a little bit difficult because this girl is passing urine and she could not talk. The only thing she could do when she falls asleep is to start shouting that he's here, he's here, he's here. So she could not talk about what happened. Then the driver brought another small girl of around 10 years who saw what happened. That girl explained how that man was housed in that family, how he carried that girl to the street near Lodwar Boys Secondary School, she said she was following, defiled her, and then started beating her to keep quiet or else he will kill her. So when that girl, and I asked the girl, can you identify that man? She told me, yes, I can identify. I even know where he is right now. So what I did was I know it was not my role to call the police, but I called the OCS and I told him I need 2 security officers. We want to arrest someone. So he was arrested and taken to me. But what really, what struck me most was the magnitude of, the problems that girl had. I was helpless. I called partners. I called UNICEF, I called the Cradle. I even called the social worker from the Cradle because I said it was too much for me. I could not even talk to the girl. I could not talk to the family. And I even spoke with Gladys, and I was even contemplating to stop working because it was becoming too much. In that month alone, I had received so many cases that we were not able to support in terms of medical support because of those fistulas. So when I called the partners, and I talked with Mercy. I told Mercy, I think I am not able to provide professional support because this case it's so much traumatic even to me. I cannot be able to support this girl. When I was talking to Mercy, this lady, the Spanish lady, Alexia, she came and she realized that I was very, very low. And she started asking me if it is the case. I told her, if you are in a position to help me just bring this girl to, cheer her up, please help me. The mother is a drunkard. She does not even know whether the child was defiled. So I was very helpless because there was no one. The person who was staying with this girl at the hospital was a boy who is a relative. So when Alexia, she became now part of my problem, and even the other partners, because it was detaching even from support, it was becoming a little bit personal for me. And I asked Alexia if she could help me rescue this girl. She called the gynecologist. She was a lady, an Irish lady. And she told me they can take this girl to, now they put her on colostomy bag. They can take her to Narokotome, where we have the missionaries of St. Paul's community. They have a dispensary and they have a clinical officer to first of all deal with the infections, and also she's going to be on the colostomy bag for some time, like 2 months, before they try to do the repair. So I was a little bit relieved because I knew that girl was in good hands. And even when we received this funding for the emergency, I asked Mercy, those missionaries, they are looking up to me for moral support, psychosocial support for these girls. The family is looking up to IRC, but now there's nothing I can do. We don't have even money to hire a vehicle or even to fuel our vehicle to go to that site to visit the girl. Every time that girl, those experiences, become worse. Those the Spanish lady calls me and she's telling me, is there a way you can come? So for me, I think it was a very unique case, much as there are so many other cases of such kind. But for a 6-year-old, and understanding the impact of, it wasn't a good one. Yeah. At that time, I was also acting out of emotions, and I spoke with the judge, because usually what happens is they are put into the cell for 2 days and then they are released for the investigations too. But I spoke with the judge because the Spanish doctor had given a very comprehensive report of what happened. And I also spoke with the OCS, and I asked them that they should not release him from the cell. So then the OCS was asking if we can do an identification parade for the girl to identify that man, which for me was not it could not work. So I just pleaded with the judge and told him, let this man be remanded until however long it takes that girl to just physical healing. We can ignore the emotional healing, but physical healing, let him. He is currently remanded at the Lodwar GK prisons.